Gentlemen, let us not speak in simple binaries of good and evil, of saintly women and villainous men. The truth is far more complex, far more unsettling, and demands that we peer beyond the veil of our own illusions. Every human psyche contains a shadow, a realm of thoughts, urges, and instincts that the conscious mind denies, represses, or ignores. This shadow is not inherently wicked. It is simply the part of the self we refuse to acknowledge. But in denying it, we give it power, we allow it to move in secret. In some women, this shadow finds a peculiar expression, one that is neither loud nor brutish, but rather seductive, refined, and socially palatable. It wears the mask of charm, of innocence, of mystique. The shadow hides in smiles that flatter, in vulnerability that entraps, in emotional storms that appear spontaneous but are at times orchestrated to test, to manipulate, to dominate. What society often mistakes for femininity is sometimes the shadow dressed in silk. This is no condemnation, but an observation that requires courage to accept. Just as men may express their repressed fears and insecurities through aggression, control, or ambition, some women express theirs through emotional games, passive domination, and psychological entanglement. And because the world is so enchanted by the aesthetics of femininity, its grace, its softness, its allure, it rarely questions the deeper motives when things feel off. The shadow hides best when it looks like everything we've been told to desire. Consider the woman who draws a man in not through honesty, but through ambiguity, who offers affection and distance in equal measure, creating a hunger that cannot be satisfied. Her shadow may not even be fully conscious to herself. She may not understand why she sabotages, tests, or ensnares. But the truth is, she is not merely acting, she is compelled by her own unseen forces, by parts of herself she too has not faced. And in this dance she pulls forth the man's own shadow, awakening in him his need for validation, his desire to rescue, his fear of abandonment. This meeting of shadows is intoxicating, but also dangerous, for if the man remains unconscious, if he believes only in what she presents outwardly, he will not see the deeper truth of what he is dealing with. He will mistake a wound for a mystery, a manipulation for depth, a trauma for passion, and he will find himself trapped, confused, stripped of energy, questioning his own worth and sanity. To see this, to truly see it, is not to become cynical or cold. It is to become awake. The darkness once named loses its power, but until it is seen, it plays behind every mask, whispers behind every kiss, and leads both the man and the woman into cycles of destruction they do not understand. The woman whose shadow goes unchecked does not destroy because she is evil. She destroys because her own pain has become her compass, and her shadow has taken the throne of her soul. There exists a profound illusion among men, an illusion that every woman seeks love in its highest, most spiritual sense. But love, in its purest form, demands vulnerability, surrender, and self-awareness. And not every soul is prepared for such a journey. Some women, though they speak of love, are in fact driven by the need for emotional and psychological control. This drive does not appear in monstrous form. It is subtle, concealed beneath gestures of affection, need, or even fragility. But it is no less real and no less dangerous. These women do not desire a partner in the true sense. They seek a subject, a reflection, a source of energy they can shape, manipulate, and feed upon. Their love is not a mutual offering, but a form of conquest, an emotional chess game where they must always remain one move ahead. Their greatest fear is not abandonment, but loss of power. And so, they craft situations, words, silences, and even crises, not to grow closer, but to maintain their dominance over the psychological terrain of the man. They may appear emotionally intense, passionately invested, even deeply wounded. But these traits, while not always inauthentic, serve a larger, unconscious purpose: to bind the man, to pull him into a spiral of confusion where he cannot discern his own thoughts from her projected reality. She becomes the axis around which his emotional world turns, not because he has chosen her, but because she has subtly made herself indispensable, not through love, but through manipulation disguised as intimacy. The man, especially if he is unaware of his own inner voids, becomes ensnared. He may believe he has found depth, mystery, or someone to heal, but what he has truly entered is a psychological prison, one without walls, guarded not by force, but by guilt, fear, and the illusion of connection. Her need for control is often rooted in a deep-seated fear of being powerless, abandoned, or unseen. But instead of confronting this fear, she masks it with dominance, emotional control, as a substitute for genuine closeness. This dynamic does not make her evil, nor does it make the man weak. It reveals the unconscious forces at play between two people who have not yet faced their inner landscapes. The woman projects her own fragmentation outward, binding the man to her internal chaos, while he, believing himself her savior, becomes her captive. To name this truth is not to despise women, but to awaken men. For only through awareness can one distinguish love from possession, union from enslavement. The man must cease to mistake intensity for authenticity, control for care. He must learn to recognize when he is no longer a partner, but a puppet in someone else's psychological theater. Only then can he step out of the illusion, and only then can she, perhaps, be seen not as a sorceress, but as a soul crying out from behind the veil of control she has wrapped around her heart. In the unconscious theater of the psyche, appearances are often not what they seem. Symbols invert themselves. What glitters is not always gold. It may be the polished mask of the shadow. One of the most deceptive illusions a man can fall into is mistaking manipulation for affection, charm for care, and emotional instability for depth. These illusions are not merely tricks of personality, they are archetypal distortions, rooted in the unseen conflicts of the soul. Some women, not in conscious malice but from unconscious necessity, learn to manipulate not through force but through emotional suggestion. They do not demand, they imply. They do not argue, they withdraw. They do not shout, they cry. In doing so, they create a magnetic field of perceived vulnerability, in which the man feels both responsible and compelled to protect, to soothe, to please. He believes he is loved. He believes he is needed. But he does not see that he is being used. Not in a crude, external way, but on the level of emotion, where the soul's equilibrium is quietly disturbed. The woman may wrap this manipulation in the softest language. Her tone may be gentle, her gaze may be tender, but her actions will follow a pattern. He is pulled close, then pushed away, praised, then criticized, idealized, then subtly devalued, all the while she maintains the illusion that her responses are born from emotional honesty. But beneath that, if one listens carefully, there is a hunger, not for love, but for dominance through emotional control. Charm, too, is a tool in this unconscious arsenal. It presents itself as warmth, attentiveness, flirtation, and playfulness. The man may believe he is being cared for. In truth, he is being tested, studied, measured. His reactions watched to determine how easily he can be bent. The charm is not a gift of her essence. It is a lure, an invitation into a labyrinth of her making, and once inside, he may not know how to leave without losing what he thinks is love. Then there is emotional instability. Many men, especially those disconnected from their own inner depths, see chaos in a woman and mistake it for profundity. They see mood swings as mystery, anxiety as sensitivity, erratic behavior as passion. But what they are witnessing is not depth, it is fragmentation. It is the raw, unintegrated shadow of the feminine crying out through behavior that seeks to engulf rather than connect. The man, trying to rescue her or prove his strength, finds himself destabilized in turn. This inversion of meaning, where manipulation feels like love, charm like nurturing, and instability like passion, is the hallmark of the unconscious spell. And the man who cannot discern between the mask and the essence becomes a participant in a drama not of his choosing. He loses himself by trying to find her, and the more he tries to understand her, the less he understands himself. Only through the painful task of inner awakening can he begin to see clearly. Only when he recognizes that not all affection is love, not all charm is care, and not all turmoil is truth, can he step out of the illusion and meet the feminine, not as a boy needing her validation, but as a man who has reclaimed his own center. There is a hidden law of the soul that many men do not yet grasp. Whatever is unacknowledged within will manifest without. A man who remains unconscious of his own inner turmoil, his wounds, fears, unmet longings, and suppressed instincts, becomes highly susceptible to being ensnared by the dark feminine, not because she is evil, but because she is the mirror of his chaos, the living embodiment of the forces he refuses to face within himself. The psyche seeks wholeness. What a man refuses to confront inwardly, life will draw to him outwardly, through symbols, relationships, and encounters. When a man carries deep emotional fragmentation, resentment toward the mother, shame about his own weakness, guilt over past failures, repressed rage, this emotional debris does not vanish. It sinks into the unconscious, waiting to re-emerge. And when he meets a woman who embodies the energy of the dark feminine, seductive, chaotic, enchanting, yet dangerous, he feels drawn to her as if by fate. But it is not fate. It is his own soul calling him to battle through her. Such a woman may seem electrifying to him. She touches the very places in him that are most vulnerable. Her presence activates his hidden self-doubt, his need to be seen, his hunger for meaning. But she does not offer healing. She offers entanglement. She becomes both the wound and the illusion of the cure. And the man, unaware that he is dealing with his own shadow projected outward, falls under the spell. He believes he is in love. In truth, he is in confrontation with the disowned parts of his own psyche. The more unconscious the man, the more power she holds over him. She will feel like a mystery he must solve, a tempest he must endure, a goddess he must worship. But these are not truths, they are archetypal traps. His longing to be chosen, to be affirmed, to prove his worth makes him pliable. He will tolerate emotional volatility, accept psychological games, even sacrifice his dignity, all in the name of what he thinks is love. But what he seeks is not her. It is the resolution of his own internal division, which he temporarily conceals with intensity and allure. He who has not faced the beast within will find it in the eyes of a woman, and if he is not careful, he will curse her for what is, in truth, a reflection of his own unintegrated nature. The dark feminine does not create his suffering, she reveals it. She dances with the part of him that remains undeveloped, still seeking motherly approval, still afraid of abandonment, still unwilling to stand alone in the fire of his own soul. Only the man who has turned inward, who has sat with his own sorrow, wrestled with his rage, and made peace with his past, can meet the dark feminine without collapsing. He does not fear her, nor does he need her to save or destroy him. He sees her not as his master or enemy, but as a force, powerful, complex, and worthy of respect. There are women who do not consciously seek to harm, deceive, or control, yet their very presence in a man's life brings disruption, confusion, and emotional captivity. The roots of such behavior are rarely malevolent. They are far more tragic than wicked. For these women are often acting not from a place of clear intent, but from deeply embedded, unresolved wounds. Their pain has not found healing, and so it seeks power as a substitute for wholeness. What begins as suffering becomes strategy, often subtle, often unconscious, until domination is mistaken for intimacy and control is cloaked in the language of love. Pain that is not transformed is transmitted. Some women, having experienced abandonment, betrayal, humiliation, or emotional neglect, especially in their formative years, internalize a deep sense of powerlessness. This wound festers quietly, out of sight, buried beneath layers of charm, sensuality, intellect, or sensitivity. Yet within, the wound begins to form a new identity, one that sees vulnerability as weakness, dependence as danger, and love as a battlefield where only one can remain unbroken. In this internal crucible, a transformation takes place. The desire to connect becomes contaminated by the need to control. Affection becomes a weapon, silence a punishment, tears a tactic. These women learn, often without ever making the choice consciously, that to avoid being hurt, one must stay in control, emotionally, psychologically, even spiritually. And because their methods are not overtly aggressive, they are rarely questioned. A man may not realize he is being dominated. He may simply feel that he is always one step behind, always unsure, always striving to regain some emotional footing that was taken from him without a word. This kind of domination is not loud. It is not the domination of command, but of energy, of presence. A sigh, a glance, a sudden withdrawal of warmth. These become tools learned in the shadows of trauma. She does not scream, she leaves the room. She does not threaten, she grows cold. And the man, desperate not to lose her affection, learns to submit, not out of love, but out of fear of disconnection. Yet it is vital to understand, this behavior is not rooted in strength, it is rooted in pain. Beneath the control is a terrified child who once had no voice, no choice, no power. The adult woman has become adept at navigating life by never again placing herself at the mercy of another, but in doing so, she often becomes the very force she once feared, one who binds rather than frees, who tests rather than trusts. This dynamic will continue until someone awakens. The man, if he remains unaware, will collapse into emotional confusion or rebellion, but if he sees clearly, he will not react with anger or submission. He will stand firm in the face of her wound, neither rescuing her nor falling victim to it. And perhaps then she too may glimpse what she has become, not a queen, but a captive to her own hurt, wearing power like armor because softness once betrayed her. The true peril a man faces in the presence of a dark or wounded woman is not her complexity, nor her chaos, nor even her capacity to manipulate. It is his blindness. Blindness not only to her nature, but more importantly to what she reflects in him. For every relationship is a mirror, and the feminine, by her very nature, often becomes the canvas upon which a man unconsciously paints the hidden aspects of his own psyche. The danger lies in the projection, not the person. A woman may appear to the man as bewitching, unstable, seductive, distant, nurturing, or cruel, but what he sees in her is never just her. It is a mixture of her being and his unconscious. If a man has not explored the forgotten corridors of his own soul, he will inevitably cast his unresolved tensions onto the feminine form. He will confuse her wounds with his, her shadows with his own, and in the illusion of her otherness, he will miss the truth that she is reflecting to him the very parts of himself he has refused to confront. The more a man denies his inner fragmentation, the more he will find it in the women he attracts. A man afraid of his own emotional volatility will be magnetized to a woman who storms unpredictably. A man ashamed of his vulnerability will be captivated by a woman who punishes him with emotional withdrawal. A man who has not met his own inner feminine, his intuition, his sensitivity, his yearning for connection, will unconsciously seek it in a woman and then rage against her when she fails to carry the weight of his unlived self. He may call her toxic, he may call her mad, he may feel victimized, betrayed, shattered by her behavior. And yet, if he remains asleep, he will walk away having learned nothing, only to find the same patterns in another face, another body, another story. For it is not her that continues to appear, it is its shadow, using her as the vessel through which it seeks recognition. This is not to absolve the woman of responsibility for her actions, nor to romanticize dysfunction. It is to place the responsibility where it truly belongs, with the man's perception. Until he learns to look through her and not merely at her, he will remain entangled in projection. He will blame what is outside instead of reclaiming what is within. To awaken is to see the feminine not as savior or saboteur, but as mirror, not as the answer nor the enemy, but as a profound opportunity for self-acknowledge. Her chaos may not be his, but his response to it is. Her seduction may not originate from him, but his hunger for it does. In this way she becomes the test, the alchemical fire in which his illusions burn, and the truth of his soul begins to take form. The danger, then, was never her. The danger was his refusal to see himself. A man does not awaken simply by finding the right woman, nor by fleeing the wrong one. His true awakening begins when he pierces the veil of illusion and beholds the dual nature of the feminine, not as a flaw, not as betrayal, but as a sacred truth. The feminine, like the moon, holds two faces, one of light, nurturing and inspiration, the other of darkness, seduction and destruction. To see only one is to live in a dream. To see both is to begin the path of initiation. But this vision will destroy the false self, for it demands something far greater than judgment. It demands self-confrontation. Until a man has faced the serpent coiled in his own soul, he will continue to fear the serpent in the woman. He will demonize her for traits he has not accepted in himself: neediness, rage, manipulation, grief, and idealize her for qualities he has not cultivated: empathy, creativity, intuition. Thus he splits the feminine into mother and temptress, angel and siren, virgin and witch. But these are not truths. They are projections of his own unintegrated psyche. He will continue to oscillate, chasing one form of woman, fleeing another, until he learns that the drama is not external, it is within. The chaos that unsettles him in her is a reflection of the chaos he refuses to meet in himself. The sweetness he craves from her is often a substitute for the tenderness he has long denied to his own being. And the power she holds over him is the very power he has surrendered through his refusal to become whole. The journey begins not with her but with him, alone in the dark corridors of his own interior world. There he must confront his buried fears, his hidden compulsions, his childhood wounds and inherited beliefs about love, control, and worth. He must confront the masks he wears to be accepted, the games he plays to avoid pain, and the personas he adopts to feel safe. Only then can he see the woman clearly, not as an adversary, not as a fantasy, but as a mirror. When he integrates his own shadow, her darkness no longer frightens him. He no longer needs to control her, nor to be controlled by her. He does not flee when she reveals her chaos, nor does he submit when she tests his strength. He remains centered, not because he is indifferent, but because he has become conscious. And in that consciousness, he can love her as she is, without illusion, without fear. This is the threshold of masculine awakening, the recognition that the feminine is both womb and abyss, muse and mirror. She is not here to complete the man, nor to destroy him. She is here to reveal what he has not yet found within himself. And when he no longer resists her duality, he discovers his own, the warrior and the poet, the sovereign and the servant, the protector and the mystic. This is not the end of his journey, it is its true beginning. And so, the call to men is not to fear the feminine, nor to worship it blindly, but to see it as it truly is, radiant and ruthless, nurturing and consuming, a force of life that reflects whatever is hidden within. The dark truth about some women is not merely about them, it is about us, about the parts of the masculine that have remained fragmented, naive, or asleep. A man's liberation does not come from controlling the woman, nor escaping her, nor blaming her, but from awakening to his own inner world with ruthless honesty. When he no longer projects his unhealed wounds onto her, he breaks the cycle. He no longer chases illusions or clings to false saviors. He becomes whole, dangerous in his clarity, gentle in his strength, and grounded in his presence. Only then can he meet the feminine in all her forms without losing himself. Only then can he love, not from need or fear, but from power, true power, born not of domination but of inner mastery. And in that space, both the man and the woman may finally meet as they are, not as masks, not as myths, but as mirrors, awakening each other, not through control, but through truth.